We are back. Week 4 in the books. Jonathan Henschel, Caleb Johnson. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Excited for the podcast.
What another great week of basketball where some teams wreaked havoc on one another. Another great set of games, honestly. I mean, pretty much all these games, with the exception of the 2 p.m. game, were really competitive down towards the end of things. We'll just jump right into it. CJ, we start off with the Celtics and the Spurs. This game was a 10-point lead for the Spurs at the half, 36-26, and the next thing you know, the Celtics had closed it down to a one-possession game, and it looked like the Spurs didn't necessarily know where they were going to go. Enter the Dennis Koger show. They win 71-51. Talk to us about what Dennis did on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think altogether this is probably the Celtics' best game for about, 27 minutes, maybe 28 minutes. I think they finally put it together. It just stinks that they had to play the Spurs this week because they did play really well. But, because it was a 2-point game at one point. I think it was 60-58. And the Spurs went on like a 18...
50-48 or something like that. Yep.
You're right, 18-1 run to kind of close them out. And a lot of it was Dennis. He was special. I was talking to him a little bit before the game, and he was motivated. And he wanted it, and he didn't want his team to get to 2-2. So, this is kind of a tough draw for the Celtics because they, to play the Spurs after a loss, they're definitely motivated. But I mean, credit the Celtics for playing really well and hanging in there for almost the whole game.
Yeah, it feels to me like the Celtics, almost all 4 of their games have been the same. They got down just by massive amounts in their game against the Grizzlies. I remember I texted you it was a 20-point game. The Rockets were up 25 on them in the first half and like 23 at the half. The Pistons game was closer at the half, but the Pistons did have the lead early on. And then, of course, the Spurs were up 10 at halftime. They have started all 4 of their second halves really strong. They get back to within 1 point of the Grizzlies. They get back, they lose to the Rockets in a much closer game in that second half than the final score indicates. They were right there with the Pistons, and then they get this game down to one possession. I think you're right. I think they're doing things the right way. They haven't had enough shots fall, in my opinion. They shot 35% from the field, and the Spurs
hard to win.
Shot 46. Just 6 out of 27 from three is not going to cut it.
No.
And they matched. Just never would I've ever believed that they would match the Spurs on the glass. 39 rebounds apiece. I mean, they're doing things the right way. They're just not getting enough shots to fall. So the Celtics, unfortunately for them, do fall to 0-4, but I think they have a couple games coming up that they're going to like their matchups.
Yep.
But yeah, Dennis Koger, how about 28 shots? That's a lot of shots.
Yeah,
to
you don't see that a ton from Dennis.
No.
I mean, he's definitely an aggressive scorer, but he's typically pretty efficient and picks his spots. But 28 it's a good.
Yeah,
number,
is it fair to say that they didn't have any other option at that point? I mean, to me it felt like Trey's obviously super efficient. He's 4 out of 5. He's got 10 and 10, but he's not necessarily a high volume shooter per se.
Very efficient.
It just felt like Dustin Renaissance just did not have a feel for the basketball, which was unlike him. And
with the Greens not there, I mean
exactly. Like, I just don't know that they had another option.
Octavius played well.
Yep.
I'll give him some credit. He played well, but the scoring needed to come from somewhere. I think Dennis just took it upon his shoulders. He realized he had to kind of have to take this thing over, and he did.
And outside of Dennis, only 1 3-pointer the whole game from the Spurs, which is just so unlike
rare,
them. Yeah. And Matt Cunningham knocked that one down. So I think Dennis sort of just said, we're not going to lose this game. Hop on, and I'm going to take you guys across the finish line here. And on top of the 36 points, the lead all scorers from the week, he had 14 rebounds.
Yeah.
I think he's a pretty good candidate.
In the running, for sure.
In the running. That's a good way to put it for player of the week. The Nets and the Heat, that game really started out electrically. It was a fantastic start. The Nets were up early. Heat came back and took the lead there. A lot of John going back and forth. It was fun. I think, unfortunately, and tried to get an update, but I haven't heard back from him from Lonzel. He had a pretty scary moment where his knee buckled. I know doctor, talking to his daughter Kai, she said she thinks, Lord willing, there wasn't necessarily any structural damage. Her theory was that maybe the sort of dislocated the knee, and they might have been able to pop it back in after the game. Regardless, I mean, the amount of pain that he was in was definitely scary, and you felt for him. And obviously taking nothing away from him. I mean, it in some ways, I think, sucked the life out of the run that the Heat were on.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a little while for the game sort of to pick back up for a good reason. I mean, everyone was very scared that, something really serious had happened. And it's possible it still has. They just don't have that update from him. And we hope you're okay, Lonzel. Thoughts and prayers are with you. But the Nets really, really needed Puda back, and
played really well.
he was so good. I mean, Sammy and Puda both had 21, and then McLaurin's just continues to be that third option that they've needed.
Season.
And they end up winning 79-72. I mean, that game was about 13 points with just 3 minutes to go, and the Heat extended the game and got it down to single digits. I mean, you know what the Heat do, getting they like to force turnovers and steals and all that fun stuff. But talk to us what you're seeing in this box score as the Nets improved to 3-1.
I think even outside the box score, just watching the last maybe 8 to 10 minutes of the game, I think the one word that stuck out to me between both these teams is chemistry. I think the Nets have probably the best chemistry in the entire league. I think you would agree.
I would.
The passing, the playmaking. They were very seamless, like almost running sets on offense at times. I mean, they were hitting each other in stride. A lot of assists in the second half. And from what I saw from the Heat, to be honest, John, just didn't seem like the chemistry was there down the stretch. Guys were quitting on plays. Sometimes they weren't even walking past half court on offense and just staying back on defense. So it just seemed like that alone kind of gave the Nets the edge on the stretch. And I think Sammy got a lot of easy looks down, late in the game, a lot of back cuts, great cutting from him and Martavis. So that was what stood out to me. I think the 8 for 10 for Sammy stands out as just like he got a lot of easy shots, 2 for 2 from 3, very efficient game from him. I liked his game, and then I thought Jared Harris kind of had a quiet game. His stats may not always show, but when he's out there, I think the ball moves really well. I think he had a really good game too.
Yeah, he's they have. I try to think how to say this. So many solid role players, and Jared is one of them too. Jared might not give you 20 points, but he's going to give you 6 to 10, and he's going to get some rebounds. And he, like you said, he distributes the ball. Him and Ronnie and Chills, these guys all do that. It's hard to think that there's a team that does have better chemistry than them right now.
I don't think anyone does.
And they picked up right where they left off in week 1. Again, the only roster to be the exact same. They return all 8 guys, and I mean, again, we can go back to that controversial loss against the Rockets. The Nets are borderline undefeated if it's not for that game, and they're going to like kind of what their schedule looks like moving forward. So the Nets are playing at a really high level. So how about the Heat? They shoot, according to the stats here, 26 of 48 from the field. Shot 54%. They lost the game by 7.
That's crazy.
Assuming that the stats are right, 8 out of 17 from 3. The Heat didn't play
and
poorly
11 of 12 from the free throw line. I mean, they were super efficient.
Did some things the right way.
A lot of turnovers, though.
And that's exactly what I was going to say.
13 turnovers.
And 12 steals for the Nets. The Heat only had 4. That never happens.
Well, I mean, the ratio, so they had 12. So of the 13 turnovers by the Heat, 12 of them were steals.
Exactly.
Which probably led to layups and buckets.
Yep.
So, wow, that's a huge number.
Yeah, and why the Nets had 12 turnovers.
Yep,
only 4 were steals, which I assume means you're
just throwing the ball out of bounds,
exactly.
which means your defense
get your defense set up.
Yeah,
yep.
so that's...
So if you had told me that they would go 54% from the field, 47 from 3, 11 to 12 from the line, you're like, oh my goodness, the Heat find a way to beat the Nets. But they just, in an uncharacteristic way, how about the Nets? They continue to be the league's basically top defensive team, and they continue to share the ball. 12 assists is a good number, just 3 for the Heat, and that's the difference there with the Nets, the veteran presence, the way that they play. So I was encouraged to see Lamarius Lillard there. He had 11 points and 7 rebounds. They just, like you said, they've got a lot of pieces and a lot of moving parts, and it looks like a group that hadn't necessarily played together. Well, guess what? They haven't. Jacquees is new this season. CJ's new to the Heat, even though he had his incredible performance in Week 3, and Lamarius is there for the first time. Also a quick showing from Chino Johnson. So the Heat love that they get their bigs back, but that's a tough assignment. The Nets, I mean, nobody sees the Nets on the schedule and says, oh, we got ourselves an easy win this week. It's, if anything, one of the hardest teams to play because of the way that they play, as you said.
It's going to be a grind for the full 40.
Yep, that's absolutely right. So in a swing game, the Heat fall to 1-3 now, and the Nets improve to 3-1. And again, as you look at it, the the best defensive team in the league outside of the Spurs is the Nets, and they're within 0.4 points of each other.
And I think that number, a lot of it plays into the week one for the Spurs when they play the four-person team. Bulls.
That's true.
So,
yeah, so that's maybe inflated a little bit. Yep, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Nets are, we know, they're as good defensively as anybody. They're never going to average more than 70 points a game given up. That's just not how they run. So Nets improved to 3-1, as do the Spurs. Those two teams looking both to get back to the semifinals. Lakers and the Suns. This is not to take anything away from the Lakers. The Lakers are 4-0. They're the lone undefeated team. They are the deepest team in the league. Yep. They are fun to watch. The perimeter play they have is unbelievable. But once again, they catch a bit of a break that the Suns only have 5 guys. They have a couple guys unable to make the game that they thought they were going to have there. And although the final score was only 15 points, this game was 45-18 at halftime. And unfortunately, we just didn't get to see what we hoped would be, potentially a Final Four preview. All Lakers in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two numbers that stand out to the box score for me is the 14 threes, John, from the Lakers. It didn't seem like they missed anything in the first half. I think you were talking to Quaz a little bit there.
Yeah.
They
didn't. They really didn't.
I mean, they shot 38% from three, so they missed some, but 30% is a good number. 14 is a crazy number, but then also 15 assists. So they're sharing the ball. So a lot of their threes are coming off driving kicks in transition. So both great numbers. If your coach Andre Robertson, when looking at these stats here, seeing that chemistry really starting to shine. So everyone's in the box score. Everyone's score for the Lakers. So the balance is still there. I mean, they're the deepest team in the league, I think. It is frustrating, kind of like you said. I would have loved to seen, Jared Johnson there. Would have loved to seen Jay there. Some other key guys. John Oliver was a huge piece against them against the Bucks. So I think Ryan played great. I think Vashawn was electric. Jameer played pretty well. He hit some shots. So the guys who were there played good, but they kind of ran out of gas a little bit. In the second half, in the first half, where they kind of came out slow.
Yeah, it wasn't a fair fight from the beginning. Didn't have their footing underneath them.
The worst team in the league to play zone against is the Lakers, and they kind of have to play zone for the first 30 minutes until they kind of changed a little bit at the end. And by then, it was just too late. I mean, they hit too many threes. So, credit the Lakers. They played fantastic, but I still think the Suns aren't going anywhere, John. I think they're still going to be one of those top 4 or 5, maybe lowest 16. I mean, they're going to be a tough team out in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're 1-3, and I think it's going to be interesting to see where they finish at the end of the regular season. It's hard to think that they would lose more than. You know what? I'm not going to put a number on that. I don't think if they can figure out their personnel, I don't think they're going to lose too many more games. They still have a couple very, very good teams on their schedule, but at the same time. The Suns beat the Bucks. They beat you guys back in week 3. Their losses are against the 3-1 Grizzlies, the 3-1 Nets, and the 4-0 Lakers. That's
tough schedule. Tough schedule.
What is that? A 10-2 combined record against the 3 teams they've lost to. It's not like the Suns are out there losing to teams that don't know how to play basketball. They've had a tough draw, and we know them. The way that they play, the way things work with them, they're only going to get better as the season goes on. So kudos to the Lakers. Again, they took advantage of it when they played the Pistons. They took advantage of it against the Suns with only 5 guys. We're not taking anything away from them. Mm-hmm. You play who shows up, and they came out and thunder blasted them in the first half. But again, the Lakers continue just all across the board. Unbelievable offense. 14 threes, and 8 of their 9 guys make a 3. Every single guy that attempted a 3 made one. So that's the attack that they have. Yeah, 15 assists. It's ironic that the Suns still out-rebounded the Lakers. That shows you. Well, and Kavos did it himself, basically.
Kavos, geez, he had what? I think my brother said maybe 13 offensive rebounds. It seemed like it was just unbelievable. He was a maniac out there on the boards. And credits. That's his game. That's his style of play. The size, and that's the one weakness of the Lakers. So if you have the size and the shooting that they kind of pair with that, they are beatable. Unfortunately, the Suns just didn't have that shooting to pair with their size. Yeah,
going to be interesting to see how the Suns bounce back in that kind of Week 5 game against the Pistons, a little Chicago Heights action. So, Grizzlies and Warriors, you called this game up in the booth.
Fun one.
What a really, really, really good 3 o'clock game this was. Both teams looking to get to 3-1. The Warriors had a 3-point halftime lead. sort of faded down the stretch. I think they ran out of gas a little bit, didn't get back on defense. The Grizzlies played a little bit more together, a little bit faster there as they ran at the end and took advantage of, I think, what was a tired Warriors team that only had 6 guys. And the Grizzlies, after a strange start to the season, a doubleheader win an off week, a tough loss against the Lakers in an off week, they pick up with a win here against the Warriors. The Grizzlies now are 3-1. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I was really impressed from what I saw from the Grizzlies. I called their game against the Lakers. Thought they played excellent. Thought they played valiantly in a tough loss, but this was a very, very complete game. I think we saw the full force of what Chris White can do in this league, and what I think he's going to continue to do in this league. He 25-9 on a very efficient game. 66% from the field. He was all over the place. Chad played great distributing out of that zone. He had 7 assists. The role players played really well. I really like Dan Mitchell's game a lot. I think he brings a lot to the table as a guard. Good shooter, good playmaker, kind of a tough, hard-nosed game. This game had a little bit of chippiness, John, in it. I think there was some talking at the end of the game. I'm not sure if there's some rivalry that I may not know about between some players, but there was some talking, and I think the Grizzlies let them know that they were here to stay. I'm not sure if the Warriors kind of looked past them, because I think they certainly didn't. I mean, with how the Grizzlies have played this year, but I think Latrell played well. I think he's been, I think, the most impressive player in the league so far for me. Kind of seeing him in this role as like a lead guy on a team. 23 and 13 again, an outstanding game. 5 of 6 from 3. When he's hitting threes and on the interior, they were really hard to stop. Just unfortunately, he didn't get a lot of help. As Tyree didn't have a great game. Chris Anderson played pretty well, but Quan showed up kind of mysteriously late maybe there. I don't know if you know the reason behind that, but just a weird game from the Warriors and a great win for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, when I talked with Coach Walt Hudson after the Lakers game, I think he was disappointed because he didn't feel like they played to their identity, and I don't necessarily know fully what he would mean by that, but this was that for sure.
Yes.
Chris White wasn't great against the Lakers. He still had a double-digit performance, but this was the Chris White that Walt said we were going to see. And I mean, Rich Kirk was great. He chips in 12. 3-1, the Grizzlies, the way they play together, the energy, the passion that they have, it's really fun to watch. It's contagious. And then I just think the biggest downfall for the Warriors, I don't say this trying to be critical of anybody else in their team, but there aren't too many guys that should have more shots than Tyree. I'll say it that way. Latrell takes 14 shot attempts, and Tyree does end up with 12. But Otis Houston also has 12, and it's just interesting that Tyree. I think Tyree should get more than 12 shots in the game.
I agree.
That would be my opinion on that.
He should be close to 18 almost every game, at least.
7 3-point attempts. I feel like he could have that in each half. Now we've seen some games this year where he didn't necessarily have his best stuff, and I think he's going to find that. He always does. But I think the key for them is to get the ball in his hands more, set some more screens, like run some more action around him. I see him at the end of the game kind of just standing there, nobody running anything for him. Maybe he had given up. I'm not sure if they were just defeated mentally at that point, but we've seen what Tyree can do. He's one of the best scorers in this league. I think you have to get him more than 12 shots, especially in a game like this. But maybe I'm not giving enough credit to the White brothers for the way they defended them. Or maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know.
I think it is a little bit of both. But I do want to don't not give the Grizzlies credit for how they defended him.
Yeah.
DeMarcus Wilson played great on him.
Yep.
In his few minutes he played. I think they rallied around him. Every ball screen they set from my memory when I calling the game, they hard hedged and double teamed him and made him pass it. So the scheme they had around him was good to make everyone else beat them basically, and that's kind of what ended up happening was he didn't get the shots he may have wanted, and the others maybe didn't help step up necessarily.
Sure. Yeah, and again, not much to speak of from Quan Shaw. We're not necessarily sure what happened there. When I looked at one point in the first half, he hadn't checked in, and he wasn't even on the bench, so I don't necessarily know what was going on there. But I think the Warriors will continue to learn how to mesh and play together. Well, they need to, otherwise they're going to be in trouble. But what a weird feeling. Last week, the Warriors just hammer the Spurs in the second half. They end that win streak.
It's weird.
And that's
stretch of games.
We're talking about how they could have been 3-0 because they didn't finish that game against the Lakers. They should have won.
Yep.
And now instead it's the Lakers who are 4-0 and the Warriors not feeling very good about themselves as they're back to 500 and they lose to the Grizzlies. So it's amazing how much a difference you can feel in a week with this stuff. But the Warriors are 500, and the sense I get with the Warriors, I know we're spending a lot of time talking about them, I think they're capable of winning or losing any game they play in. I think they are good enough to beat anybody. We saw it with the Spurs, and I think they lose to a not full-strength Lakers squad the first week. I think if they don't click and they don't get back in defense and teams are able to take Tyree away, that they are also able to lose. So it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like with them. They're, I think, a team that you don't look forward to playing because of the weapons that they have, but if they're off, they are beatable. So what an interesting sort of dynamic that the Warriors have. But credit to the Grizzlies. We want to give them credit as they get to 3-1.
Definitely one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah. The Bulls and the Pistons square off at 4 o'clock. Definitely, you felt a sense of desperation in this game. A little bit of just, chippiness and jawing back and forth. The Bulls trying to avoid an 0-4 start, the dreaded 0-4 start, and they do successfully do that despite probably their worst half of the year. They only scored 23 points. They were just non-existent offensively in the first half. I'll credit the Pistons on that. The Pistons, at least early on, rebounded well and held their own down in the paint. But then in the second half, the Bulls just sort of took over and ended up winning the rebounding battle by 18, which I did not see coming. That's a huge advantage. And, of course, they do get 3 guys to score in double figures. What stands out to me as the Bulls win 62-51, I'll let you, break this game down. If you had told me that Nick Crow would have 8 points and Seth Johnson would have 7 points and they would win a double-digit game against the Pistons, I would have told you you're crazy. Again, Nick Crow, 8 points, Seth Johnson, 7 points, and they win by double digits against the Pistons. This was a strange game. It had a lot of things to it, but what are your thoughts on a game that the Bulls needed and they found a way to win?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head when you said desperation. I think the Bulls shockingly didn't really have their best stuff, like you said in the first half. It was, for needing a win, they didn't come out great and didn't play their best half. There was some frustration, some guys getting into each other a little bit in a competitive manner. And then you kind of saw some guys, Benny, Bobby woke up a little bit. I thought Jonah played a great game.
Yeah, Switzer.
Off the bench. He played fantastic in key minutes. And I think they kind of found their identity a little bit. Benny and Bobby are great guards, and then their posts just the rebounding just took over. I mean, Seth, Nick, and Jonah all kind of their forwards, their bigs, all getting over 6 rebounds. I mean, it just was huge on the stretch. Kind of wore out the Pistons. I thought Mark Connor played great for the Pistons. We'll always see him play well. Bulls played great. Benny played great when he needed in the second half. And it was just a big win for the Bulls.
Yeah, Mark Connor continues to be. I've been impressed by him both on and off the court. 20 points. He's top 5 in the league right now in scoring. Ironically, after week 4, I believe if I recall it, 4 of your top 5 or 6 scorers are on teams that are 1-3, which is interesting with Terrell, Benny, and Mark. But great game from Mark there. Just not getting enough help around him right now. And we'll talk more about this because the Pistons and the Suns play. They've had as much personnel issues as any team.
Yeah, it's been strange to watch.
It has been. Both coaches working through that. They feel like different situations just because we've seen sort of that Suns team play now for 2 seasons, and we know what they're capable of when everybody's there. We saw it in week 3, although we also saw it in week 3 with the Pistons. But we'll circle back to that. So big win for the Bulls. They're 1-3. Pistons fall to 1-3 now, and we mentioned the Suns are 1-3 and the Heat are 1-3. So how about 4
pretty solid teams?
Really solid teams at 1-3. That's just the league that we're in this season. Game of the week, the nightcap. Tough one for you guys again. Unable to complete the comeback. Just ran out of time there. You fall 80-78 to the Rockets. A little bit of bad luck. You only had 5 guys there for the majority of the game. Billy Baptist tries to make a heroic appearance there at the end, and you just, in my opinion, just ran out of time. And, Billy, has 7 points, which will hurt his scoring average. I know he cares more about the team than his individual scoring average. But how about Tone Marshall again, who's leading the league in scoring? He's averaging 27 points a game. He had 20 points. Says he only had 5 steals. I thought he had about 25.
Yeah, it seems like more for sure.
He picked your pocket a couple times.
Yes, thank you, John.
Yes, of course. Had to get that in there. Brother Harry with only 14 points and what I just think was an uncharacteristically off game for him, which is more bad luck for the bad luck Bucks, as Harry Marshall shows up for the first time ever, and those two combined to score 34 points, and then Hunter Jacobs 5 of 6 from the field with 12 points, and then out of nowhere, Mr. Tanner Ribby,
another
probably
guy.
no one would guess this, a former college roommate of mine when we were at Olivet, my sophomore year, just casually steps in and knocks down 5 of his 10 threes, and he drops 20 points, which is just pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
So, and actually, as I look at the numbers, I believe he might have had 6. I'm not sure, but
it may have seemed like 6.
20 points for Ribby. So, despite that, you guys, are right there at the end. You lose 80-78. You had a good game with 19. Alex Malinich with 20, 15 from Tristan Swartz. Talk about this game and the Rockets, who put together their team after everybody else, are miraculously 3-1 and seem to be in every game.
Yeah, I think definitely a frustrating one from just the player standpoint. I think if we would have had more guys or full roster there, I think it would have been a different story, maybe outcome wise. But again, credit to the Rockets, they played well, and it does seem like we've ended up on the wrong side of the dreaded roster situations with the Suns having their full roster against us and played fantastic, and then now 2 guys who hadn't been to the league ever show up and are both former college players and both played fantastic. So, not taking anything away from the Rockets, it's unfortunate how that happens sometimes. But yeah, I think I'm proud of our guys and how we played. I thought Alex had probably the best game of his K1 career, honestly, scoring 20 points and having 9 rebounds. We made a lot of threes, which helped us stay in the game. But Tone is just, when you watch him, he's electric and he's fun to watch. When you play against him, it isn't as fun because he's just so dang good. And we kind of had to go zone a little bit throughout the game because just our legs were tired. We have some size, and it's hard to guard for the full 40 man-to-man with 5 guys. And Tone's just just an absolute wizard picking apart a zone. He knows where the soft spots are, and I think against any other team it may have worked, but Tone's just really good at picking apart that defense, and he had a great game. So credit to the Rockets; they played really well, and shout out to Billy for being there and putting the team first and trying to help us win that game. As I think we were still down maybe 4 or 5 when he came in. But yeah, I'm curious to see where our team goes from there, and I think the Rockets are still when that team's there, all those guys are there. They're going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah, they are pretty tough, and you got to see 4 guys basically score all their points there, and no Alex Thorson either. So that's the Rockets, who have had their rosters kind of evolved every week that they've played, and they just keep getting better and better. So I don't know that they have any surprises left. I don't think so, based off of now pretty much seeing everybody. But kudos to the Rockets also being in that mix for 3-1, which I did not think that would be the case after we saw the way they faded in the second half against the Spurs. But credit to them. So week 5's coming up. We've got the Bulls and the Celtics at 12 o'clock. The Bulls are 1-3. The Celtics 0-4. So they're now your lone winless team. Talk about this matchup. How about the last 2 times these teams played? That was your 7-10 game in the playoffs a year ago. I think the Bulls are going to be seeking some revenge in this one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is definitely a winnable game for both teams. I think I would probably give a slight edge to the Bulls just because I've seen a lot more consistency from their top half of the roster. But I think the Celtics should play desperate, and I hope Antonio comes out ready to play. Jonathan Townsend comes out ready to play because they're going to need this win. This is a big game for them to kind of get back into that mix of with the Heat and some of those teams, the Pistons. So big swing game for the bottom half of the standings as of right now. But I think I would have favored the Bulls maybe just ever so slightly in that game.
I do wonder how the Celtics, who really do a nice job of crashing the boards, will counter Nick Crow and Seth Johnson and Bobby and Jonah. Those
battle the bigs.
Bulls, Bulls really rebound well. So we'll see how the Celtics counter that. I also think the Bulls might have a hard time matching up with Antonio Phillips. He continues to be pretty electric. He is averaging nearly 12 rebounds a game as a guard. He's had 11, 11, 11, and 13 in
one of the
4
best
games.
rebounding guards, if not the best rebounding guards in the league.
Yeah, he's really impressive. He continues to show that week in and week out. You guys are in the 1 o'clock time slot against the mighty 4-0 Lakers. What are you looking forward to in this one? There should be some superstar power here.
I'm excited for this one because I think for the first time for our season, our backs are against the wall a little bit. 2 straight losses, kind of in the middle of the road. I think we kind of need a win. So I know for my spot, I'm going to come out and play desperate and play ready, hungry for a win. Lakers, I think this is the first time probably in their K1 history where they're the perennial number 1 seed. I mean, it's not even really a doubt anymore that they're the top seed. So kind of see how they handle some of this, not pressure, but it is different when you are playing as the top seed in the league. So, but yeah, I mean, kind of a style of differences with guards and bigs. I'm excited to see how Alex plays on our team, Alanich. If Billy shows up, it's just some height and size, and see how we can handle the quick guards they have and the depth. So hopefully we both teams are fully rostered because it could be a really good one and an instant classic.
Yeah, for your sake, you need Billy to be at his best, and then you got to leverage the size advantage that you have with Malinich and Malone, and then when you talk about guarding the perimeter, that's just a nightmare, having to guard LJ and Tone and Gerald and Dre Jr.
Kind of have
and
hope
Brian,
a few of them have an off night.
Kalani, I just list their whole roster basically. So I think if you guys are able to hang with them in terms of knocking down shots from the perimeter, you are going to have the edge on the inside, but they're going to look to run and run and run, and they've been fun to watch them running and gunning. So big chance for the Lakers here to kind of maintain that grasp that they have on the number 1 seed. But it's early on, and there's 4 teams right behind them at 3-1, so it wouldn't take much for them to be caught. All it takes is one of those teams to knock them off. The 2 o'clock game is the Suns and the Pistons, a little Chicago Heights action, both where K-Boss is from and several of the players that AP has. Not all of them. Just never, ever, ever would I have ever imagined that both these teams would be 1-3. My sort of preseason number 1, if I would have done power rankings, probably would have been the Suns. And I didn't know many of the guys on the Pistons, but from what I was hearing and some of the names that I saw and researched, you talk about a loaded team.
Yeah.
Some massive, massive talent and size. And so I kind of had this game circled on my calendar for a while in a week 5 showdown. I'm still looking forward to this game. I just didn't think that one of these teams would be falling to 1-4 after this matchup. So talk about the challenges that they've had personnel-wise and how that could play a factor in this game.
I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is this game the game key for me is going to be personnel and who shows up. I mean, you hate saying that in a church league, but that's kind of the nature of how we kind of live our life. I mean, we're all busy. We all have things going on, and these guys do travel further than anyone. So for me, it'll depend on who comes for the Pistons. If Capri shows, if some of the other guys who are the top level guys show, and then if Jared Johnson and Vashon show. I mean, we've seen when one or both of them are there. I mean, they're going to be one of the hardest teams to beat if both of them are there at the same time. So if they are there, I mean, the Suns are not a clear favorite, but are my favorite in that game. But again, you just don't know because Capri could show up and score 30 and 15 and kind of carry them with him and Mark. So I'm excited to see who shows up, and then whoever does show up, it'll be probably a bloodbath inside regardless.
Yeah, that's going to be a nightmare of a game to officiate with the way that those teams pound the ball inside. it'd be fun to see Capri and Mark play together, and it'd be fun to see Ryan and potentially Jared and or Vashawn. I really hope we get to see that, and if we do see that, it's not going to look like 2 1-3 teams going at it.
No.
So Mark Connor in the conversation for the scoring title. He's been really good so far. He just needs a little bit more help around him, and so I hope the Pistons are able to find some roster consistency. Same with the Suns, although the Suns' issues with personnel have been a little bit different. Just some things have, not worked out well for them with injuries and health in recent weeks. The Suns are a bit younger and more athletic.
Yep.
Again, John Oliver, Jared Johnson, those are 2 physical specimens that they trot out there. So we'll be interested to see. I really want to see Capri Alston back in the gym, and I want to see the Mark Connor and Ryan Kwasnicka matchup this Sunday. So don't sleep on that 2 o'clock game. 3 o'clock game, the Heat are going to play twice this week. They start off with the 3-time defending champion Spurs, and I'm sure they would want us to remind you that the last time...
Yep.
Not the last time. The last time they played in the regular season in the fall.
Yes.
They knocked off the Spurs. Now, they've played 2 times since then, and neither game was close. But they did, and still do, own a 12-30 victory over the...
over the Spurs.
Over the Spurs back in the fall of 2021. So, as far as I know, there's no Chris Green this week. He'll be back, I think, moving forward after this week. What does that mean in this matchup? Do the Heat have a deep enough team with some of the talent that we've seen from them to make this a game for 40 minutes?
I think they do. I think the Heat, we've said it before on the podcast, and even to ourselves, I think, the Heat are the team that could beat anyone. They could beat anyone but lose to anyone, kind of like some of the other teams in the league. But I truly believe the Heat, when they're at their best, when Terrell's at his best, when CJ's playing like he did against the Bulls, they can beat anybody. And we've seen the Spurs this year kind of have some bad halves, put together bad stretches. And I think Coach Matt Cunningham has potentially some challenges on his hands this week. If Chris doesn't show up and if Ben's not there again, whoever shows up with this Heat defense. And so I think the Heat need to put it together. I think Coach Trey kind of has to desperately rally his guys here because this is a big, big week for them as they play 2 tough teams and could potentially be on the wrong side of a losing streak here. So for theirs, I hope they figure it out. And but I think it starts with Terrell and CJ. If those 2 guys show up, then they can beat anybody.
Yeah, I agree completely. If the Spurs continue to turn over the ball and not make good decisions, I think they're going to struggle in this, as crazy as that sounds. If they do take care of the ball, I think they have the organization and structure and the experience, certainly, to win this game. I think if they continue to turn over the ball like they have, this is going to be an extremely challenging matchup for them if the Heat have everybody. The energy they're going to bring, the athletes that you're going to bring, the fast break dunks off of the inevitable steal they get. They're going to bring all that. So the Spurs will gladly welcome back Ben Green into their lineup,
so you'll be there.
We'll see what sort of impact that has on them and just their ability to take care of the ball. So if the Spurs continue to improve and mesh, I think their full roster is as good as anybody, and they're going to be right there in the mix. Things have been a little tough the last couple of weeks, especially without the Green brothers against the Celtics. So that's, to me, a really good 3 o'clock game. It's a big week for the Heat. You're absolutely right. You play a pair of 3-1 teams. You don't want to start 1-5. Got to find a way, I feel like, to win at least one of these games. I think this has a good chance of being the game of the week. The Nets and the Warriors in the 4 o'clock time slot inject this game into your veins, Caleb Johnson.
Yes.
3-1 Nets, 2-2 Warriors. There might be a little bit of a rivalry in this game.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, again, I don't know these guys personally, but they were former teammates. A couple of these guys played together with the Warriors in the Fall League not too long ago. But
they also may every week play together in open gym at the high school.
Okay, so I'm sure they're buddies. They're close. I mean, I think just from a friendship, just want to beat your buddies in a game. I think there's going to be an extra edge there for both teams. I think the Warriors I'm excited to see how they respond after last week's game against the Grizzlies. Maybe a game they overlooked and looked past. I can promise you this much, John. They will come up ready for this game. Are the Warriors going to be that team who show up for big games and maybe don't show up for games against other teams? I don't know, but this will be a good test to see. They beat the Spurs. Will they show up again, bring that same level of 40 minutes of basketball again this game? We'll see. But I am very, very excited for this one. Should be an instant classic for these two.
I agree. If the Warriors found a way to win this game and get to 3-2 and tie the Nets in the standings, I think it'd be, I'll say it, the biggest win of the season.
Even bigger than the Spurs game.
I think even bigger. I think this would be the biggest win.
Wow.
Beating a full-strength Nets squad, I think this would be the biggest win that any team has had this season. Now, it's going to take a lot to do it, but the Nets are not going to overwhelm the Warriors on the inside. The Warriors will have a massive size advantage.
Yep.
I think you'll probably see some Puda on Tyree and some
That's gonna be a fun one.
Sammy on Latrell. I mean, come on, what else are you looking forward to more than that?
Yeah.
The question becomes, I mean, the Warriors had 6 guys, and 3 of them are true bigs, and they just could not play the full 40 minutes and keep up with the Grizzlies. If the Nets run and share the ball for 40 minutes, I find it hard to think the Warriors are going to be able to keep up. So if the Warriors can control the pace of this game, play it on their terms, they're going to have a size advantage for sure. But if the Nets are able to run and push the pace and wear the Warriors out, and they only have 6 guys, it's going to be tough. So don't miss this game. If Tyree and Latrell have big games and Quan gets back on the map, I'm very much looking forward to this game, as you can tell.
This could be an overtime. This could be an overtime, a double overtime kind of game.
I would welcome that.
Both teams.
I would welcome that. Yet to have a double overtime game. So for those of you listening, find a way to get us a double overtime game this week. We would gladly welcome that.
In K1 history.
In K1 history,
wow.
we've never had one.
We're due. We're due.
We are due. Heat back at it, 5 o'clock. Grizzlies have to wait all day. Their first 5 o'clock game of the year. This is the 3-1 Grizzlies against what could be a 1-4 Heat team or a 2-3 Heat team, because they'll play that 3 o'clock game against the Spurs. You want to talk about some athletes in this matchup, Heat and Grizzlies.
Yeah, this one is going to be a track meet, back and forth. Hopefully some dunks, hopefully some alley-oop lobs. But, this is going to be a fascinating game. I think the Grizzlies are probably going to be at an all-time high right now, coming off that big win they just had this last week. I think they can't. Now is not a time for them to become complacent, though, John. I think Coach Walt knows that, and I know a lot of the veterans know that. But for some of those young guys who are new to this league, as soon as you get complacent, seeing at 3-1, a 2 or 3 game losing streak is inevitable. So they still have to have that same hunger and fire and passion they played with these last 2 weeks. So if they bring that, they can definitely win. But like I said, the Heat can beat anybody, and if they do end up losing against the Spurs, maybe they're extra motivated and beat them, or maybe they beat the Spurs and they ride that momentum into the 5 o'clock game. So I'm excited to see this game. It's going to be a very similar styles of play for both teams, and it should be a really good one. I
agree. We'd love to see Lamarius Lillard back matching up on Chris White or Chad White.
That would be fantastic.
Licking your chops for that one. I think the biggest week for anybody is the Heat. They have in front of them a lot of opportunities here and if they have shown, if they can put together a full game or a mostly full game, I mean, they are as good as anybody. I will say that on air as your commissioner. I will say that they are as good as anybody. But they have not been able to consistently put full games together. Mm-hmm. They did it against the Bulls, and despite still giving up 87 points, I mean, they scored 91 points against a bigger, more physical Bulls team. So what a huge week this is for the Heat. I think the Suns and the Pistons, as well as the Bulls, all looking, to get out of the 1-3, right? You want to get to 2 wins, get back to 500. Then you talk about with the Grizzlies, all these teams at 3-1, the Grizzlies, the Nets, the Spurs, all with opportunities to get to 4-1. And like you said, 1 week you're feeling great about yourselves. You guys were 2-0. Next thing you know, you're
dropped
500
2 close ones
and staring down an undefeated Lakers team. So things change fast, but I've had this week circled for a long time. This is going to be, I think, one of the best weeks of the season. Get there early and don't leave. The Bulls Celtics is set up for an all-time classic at the 12 o'clock game after what we got in the playoffs last year. And then you get
A little bit of a rivalry game.
potentially your Billy Baptist-led Bucks trying to take down the undefeated Lakers. The Heat looking to replicate that regular season success that they had 2 years ago against the Spurs. Sorry, Spurs fans, but the Heat are never going to live that one down.
No.
Then you get Voss and AP going out at a 3 o'clock game, probably your game of the week with Chills and Otis in the 4 o'clock game, and then let's just call it the track meet that it will be in the 5 o'clock game
so good.
with some athletes flying high. Don't miss this week. This is going to be a fun week. Appreciate you, Caleb Johnson, being on the podcast. For Jonathan Henschel, we are, as you can tell, very much looking forward to week 5, and we hope to see you there.
Should be gonna be a fun one.
It should be, yeah. Kankakee First Church, also known as K1. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you guys here soon.